Hey guys, welcome into Turn 2 with Scott and Troy. Really special guest for you today. Before we get to that, we are recording this at the end of the Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp season, and so you will see this episode at some point in the off season, but enjoy this bright sunshine we have in Florida as you're listening to this in the fall. Our guest today is Jeremy Powell. He is the longtime Miami Marlins Triple-A pitching coach. We've been really lucky to have him for 4 seasons now here in Jacksonville. JP, before we talk about baseball, you are itching to get home, and football is a big part of the offseason for you, and the reason why your kids are not just football players, they are terrific football players. How excited are you to get to be a dad and watch them in just a few days?
Yeah, I'm super excited. One, because I get to be home and watch them do their thing. Fortunately, football is kind of their path, all 3 of them. And so for me, it being my off season, it's great to be able to watch them do it. I've missed a lot of other sports when they were younger, but this gives me an opportunity to always be home when they're playing something. So it's really looking forward to it. Football season's fully going now, so just trying to wrap this up and get home and just be full-time support and just be there for them.
Go ahead, Troy.
So you're in Arizona in the offseason, and one of your sons go to U of A.
Yep.
Where did the other go?
So my middle one, who is a senior this year, has committed to Wisconsin. He's an offensive tackle. So he's a lineman, which, Wisconsin's known for their offensive line, and it just kind of all the stars lined up for him, did an official visit there and loved it and committed there. So and that was our goal for him, was to find a place that's home where he can go play his senior year and not really worry about the recruiting process. He was a much higher recruit than my older one, so the process was a little bit more grueling for him in terms of keeping in touch and having relationships with coaches and trying to sift through that recruiting process. So we're happy for him. He's fully locked into his senior year with his guys and his senior year in school, and not really worried about that. And so he's going to go to Wisconsin probably next probably spring. He's going to finish school, but looking forward to that, and we'll see where that goes. But it'll be a busy time for my wife and I as these boys get out of high school and kind of start doing their thing, and it's been great. It's been a blast.
Did you get a chance to go up to Madison?
I haven't been there yet. My wife has been there. My wife went there with my son for the visit, and no, I'm looking forward to getting down there. I hope I have an opportunity with him on maybe an off week to be able to get to a game and check it out. But the pictures I've seen and what I've heard from them and others, unbelievable place. So looking forward to that, for sure.
One of the most interesting things, so when I was playing in the Northwoods and, of course, in High A in Beloit, one of the most interesting things I found was in Wisconsin, they have mac and cheese pizza.
Is that right?
They have mac and cheese pizza, and it is unbelievable.
Well, my son's going to love that.
You're combining sometimes two of the best foods and putting
great.
It together.
I'd love to try it. I'll be looking for it as soon as I get there.
but Madison's great. So to kind of elaborate on that, I got to give you a huge compliment. And I told you this. I yelled at you on the field one of the days. You have an unbelievable spiral.
Oh, is that right?
The way you throw a football is, and this is maybe a thing that I don't know if it's true or not. You can be the judge of this. But when I was talking to my guys at Driveline, they always said that if you could throw a football like a spiral, like a really good spiral, you can throw a slider well. What are your thoughts on that?
I would agree. I mean, probably partly because the strength in the fingers, right, and just the mechanics of the throw coming off the side of the baseball is the only way I can kind of equate that. But in full disclosure, throwing a football has always been one of my favorite things to do, ever since I was a kid. So, when I get an opportunity to sling the ball around out there, it's a lot of fun. It always has been for me. And so, yeah, it's just, I don't know, just one of those things.
Do you still get in on the backyard games with you and your son? Does your wife play?
My wife doesn't. She'll
okay.
watch,
okay.
But we'll get involved a little bit. My days of physically, being able to be superior than them are gone with them. So, I'm careful with the confrontation with the boys for sure.
So baseball-wise for you, because you played in the major leagues, I mean, when you mentioned you always loved throwing around the football, I would assume because you still work in baseball, you've always loved playing baseball too. How did that dream start for you? Who was the person or maybe the people who got you into baseball?
I just played Little League, I played all the sports as a kid. when I was growing up, we didn't have all the distractions that the kids have nowadays with the technology and the iPads and iPhones. So we were just out playing stuff, with our friends and in the school. And so I tried to just play anything that was in season. Football, unfortunately for me, tackle football, I never really played. I never got that opportunity. But we played it around on the streets and neighborhoods with the friends. But basketball and baseball were my two sports that I played all the time. And baseball, I started at 8 years old and just played every season in Little League, and then played on into high school, and just always had a good arm for my age and pitched. And the exposure came in high school, and one thing led to another, and next thing you know, I was in a draft. So. Just my dad was my coach from the time I started all the way in through high school until I got out of high school. So, sports was always my thing. I mean, that's school never really was. I got through school, but sports I was all about that, So, having a good arm at a young age and, getting some exposure in that regard, it just kind of took me there, So the day I left high school, the next day I was gone playing pro ball. So that's what I've been into from the day I left high school.
Was that a big decision, college versus pro ball, or were you set on going pro pretty much out of high school?
I was pretty set on going pro. I kind of, again, school, I wasn't in love with school, and if I had an opportunity to get drafted, I always said I would just go. Basketball was a huge thing for me too, and so, junior college, to be able to play both was kind of on my radar, unless baseball kind of took over, and it did. I got drafted, and so I just kind of went that route. And college was never really, unless I got a scholarship, was never really, in the conversations around my house, So for me, it was like, go to JC, play them both as long as you can. If you get drafted, get an opportunity to go. That's what I was about. So it worked out for me. I was a higher round pick than I thought I'd ever be, and so that's kind of where I went,
Were you planning on staying in California to go to those JCs?
I was.
Which
yep.
one?
Probably, if I think back, Sierra Junior College was kind of on my mind at that time. I knew some people that went there, knew some coaches that were there. Wasn't very far from my house, kind of in a nicer area, and had some sports programs. So that was kind of on my mind at that time.
So tell me if this is a typo. When I was doing my research, it also said right field on your baseball reference page.
That's a typo.
That's it, really? That's I really was hoping there was something behind it.
100% typo.
Oh, it said pitcher, right-handed pitcher, and it said right fielder, and I'm like, oh my goodness.
No.
When did he play right field, and how many innings? Has he got any home runs?
Maybe in high school a little bit. Nah, that's definitely more of a typo than anything, for sure. Yep.
In the minor leagues, it kind of comes full circle to now, because one of the teams we face is the Nashville Sounds, and their manager is a legendary manager. He's one of, I think, 6 managers in minor league history with over 2,000 wins. It's Rick Sweet, and he was your manager in the minor leagues. And if I'm not mistaken here, he was the guy who told you you're going to the major leagues for the first time.
Yep.
What was that day like, and what's it like to now coach against him in the minor leagues?
It's been interesting coaching against him over the years. Just speaks to his longevity and his career, to be able to still be doing it and coaching against former players. But, I remember that day like it was yesterday. It was in Double-A. I was in Harrisburg. I went out early to play catch with a guy, and he comes walking out, calls me in, and called me into the clubhouse. And I went in there, and he got everybody's attention, and in front of everybody just announced that I'm going to the big leagues, and I'm going to pitch for the Expos in 2 days, and the whole place went nuts. Everybody went nuts, and we're happy. And of course, I was shocked and certainly happy at that time. And the next day, I was on a flight to Chicago, and then I pitched the very next day game in Chicago. My debut game was a day game at Wrigley Field, and so didn't have a ton of time to think about it. But the way he was able to call me in and get me in front of the team and kind of announce that's always now that I've been able to do that and have that opportunity, that's a special time, not only for the player, but for the coach. And so really cool thing that he did. And to be able to see him across the field and interact with him, during BP and before the game every year is always nice, because it's just, he's a skipper. He's the guy I played for. And, that's just, that relationship never goes away, so.
So does that kind of stick with you? Because I remember distinctively in Memphis when Maldonado got called up.
Yep.
And you ran in and you said, Maldi's a big leaguer, and everybody explodes.
Yep.
Is that how That's got to be one of the best feelings because now it trickles down, just like you said, into that.
100%.
So is that kind of your go-to when you have the opportunity?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, because I remember how that made me feel. And in the world that we live in now in baseball, there's a lot more movement than there was at that time. And when you can get an opportunity to tell a player that he is going and he's going to be active, when COVID hit, there's the taxi squad and there's just different scenarios that happen now when guys go. It's not always like guaranteed you're going to be active nowadays. But when you get an opportunity to tell a player, in my case, a pitcher, to go, that he gets to go, and we know he's going to be active and very likely going to pitch, that's like the ultimate. That's the ultimate, just great feeling as a coach. Like just satisfaction. And there's a lot of sacrifice that goes on as a coach. When you have a family and you have young kids and you travel and you're away from the house and you got to be gone 6 months out of the year and when you can have those moments to be able to tell a player and tell a group of guys that a guy gets to go, live out his dream, it makes all the sacrifice personally worth it. And so any chance I get that opportunity to do that, it's like I got to take it because it brings me back to that time when it happened to me. I know how I felt about it. And, you see the grind every day that guys go through to try to achieve that goal, whether it's for one day or they never come back down again and spend 20 years in the big leagues. Like that opportunity is that opportunity, and that's it. So, any chance we can do that. And I know I speak for Brownie and Colby and the other coaches I've coached with over the years that, when you have that opportunity to be able to do that, it's like that's like the ultimate goal, right, as a coach, and especially in AAA, right? So those times are great.
I almost feel like your playing career is almost perfect for AAA because you spent 3 years in the major leagues and you never got back, and yet you didn't quit. You talked about guys just constantly pushing themselves. And we can talk about this in a little bit, you went to Japan for a long, long time, and then you came back to not pitch in the major leagues to try to keep cracking that and pitch in AAA for 2 more seasons. And so I think you understand that this level is a really difficult level for people. How has your career helped you? I know you were in low A and high A and all those things as a coach, but in particular this level where there is movement up and down and guys can feel a little bitter and scorned at times.
Yeah, no, I mean, certainly drawing from experience is always probably, the best asset I can have is that there hasn't been too many pitchers that I've come across at this level that whatever they're going through, chances are I've been through that. At this level, you have young, you have older guys. You've got prospects coming through. Older guys have come down trying to find a way back up. And so you have a mixed bag of experience at AAA. But to be able to draw from my experience, what I've been through as a player, I went through every level. Nothing was ever really given to me. I was a prospect and treated like a prospect, but I had to earn everything I got. And there's a lot of failure along the way, trials, tribulations. There's a lot of adversity that I've dealt with. So for me, that's been the best asset for me is bringing that experience to them and understand that, letting them know that, like, I've been there. I understand. You're validated. Now let's get to work and get better. What do we need to do? So this level's been very gratifying in that, and I'm able to help the prospects that are coming through kind of finish them off and get them to the next level. And I feel good about helping the older guy that I'm closer in age to that has been there and been back and failed and trying to find a way, because I've been there too. So that's been the best part that I've been able to bring to the game is just that experience that I can draw from.
Maybe the coolest call-up this year, I think at least, is Emmanuel Ramirez, who's not with us anymore because he had been through 11 years in the minor leagues. And it's something like 500 games. It's something crazy. And he finally gets that shot. Like, that I would think for you has got to be really cool to be able to be in the room with Brownie and tell him, I mean, what was it like for him to finally, after all these years, similar to you, had pitched overseas to get that crack?
He goes down as one of the ultimate stories about that because, I've never been in a room telling a player he's going to the big leagues and have somebody be as shocked as him. I think he's just been used to grinding it and not getting an opportunity. And so for him, it was a big shock to him, and it shouldn't have been from our eyes because he'd been performing so well that we knew, that there's a lot of opportunity here. And it's just a matter of the stars kind of lining up a little bit. There's a need. You're the guy. You've been pitching well. There's an opportunity here in front of you. And so, for us, as shocked as he was, that was a different one. And that one I'll always remember too, because it's like, it's a special moment for him because there's so much grind that goes in. He wasn't the prospect that was kind of a can't miss, expected to get an opportunity guy, or just the guy that's on the roster that's the next guy up. This guy earned it, was not on the roster, which is a very hard thing to crack in Triple-A. So, to tell a guy like that and have him be as shocked as he was, it was really cool.
That's cool.
Yep.
When you were playing, the technology, and we talked about this with Sandy Crum, the trainer, about how his role coming up in the 80s as an athletic trainer was so different to now with the amenities. I would think as a coach, same thing, right? The video is a thing now, and spin rate and all these different cameras you guys have to measure the way the ball comes out of somebody's hand and the shape of a pitch and how it lines up with a different pitch and so on and so forth. How was it difficult to learn all these things on your journey coaching? Because this is while you're coaching, and how much do you incorporate in teaching each guy in the clubhouse?
Well, over the last probably 3 or 4 years, I've slowly incorporated more and more of it. 4 or 5 years ago, I probably would tell you I wasn't a guy that was going to seek any of that out. I feel like there is no substitute for experience in coaching and teaching, but the things that I have learned about it, it's a great tool for us in the game. It's a great tool for us. We need it. The ability to filter that to the player, though, is where that's the delicate part with it for me, is being able to filter that stuff through to the player to be able to get them to perform at their best. And a lot of times, it's again drawing on my experience to help them through an inning or an at bat or through a game or through a bullpen. Where the spin isn't right, it doesn't feel right. You can take it to another direction that gets their mind off of that to where let's focus on whatever else it is to get the ball in the zone, right? So, and you really can't do that unless you have that experience. So I think there needs to be a blend of both. And I'll tell you that it's certainly a great tool, and I've learned a ton the last couple of years with more of it that's, in front of us. And I certainly would never use it. I think it's a great tool for us in the game, but again, it's a tool. And if it's the driver of, what we do as an industry, you got to be careful with that, in my opinion, for sure.
So we have a very diverse listening group here on the podcast. As a pitching coach, I would imagine you have some pillars that every pitcher has to do to be successful, whether you're at the Little League level, the college level, the pro level, wherever it is. Walk us through maybe what those pillars look like. What is an absolute guarantee as a pitcher that you have to do to be successful?
Well, I think that first and foremost, throw the baseball the right way. In other words, understand what the grip is. Understand how it feels coming off your hand. And I've had friends with Little League kids come to me and ask me if can you give my son a lesson at 8 or 9 years old? And I always tell them I won't give him a lesson, but I'll certainly play catch with them. Because to me, it's like that's the first foundational step is like, how do they do it? And at a young age like that, their bodies have a lot of transitioning to do. They're going to go through a ton of physical changes over the next 5 years in their life. Let's say they're 9, right? From ages 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, there's a lot of physical changes that happen. So for me, it's like being able to throw the baseball the right way. And that has to do with the glove arm and mechanics, right? Delivery. That's a foundational thing for me that runs all the way from Little League all the way through into the big leagues and well into the big leagues of a guy that's been in the big leagues a long time. For me, it's a foundation is how healthy and how repeatable and how efficiently can we throw the baseball, right? And that's kind of the most foundational part. And then there's other things as you get into pro ball and things you learn. It's like guys for me have to be able to command their fastball, right? At least on one side of the plate. There's a difference between control and command. Control is being able to get it in the box. Command is being able to hit a lane or a spot, right? The best can hit both spots on both sides of the plate. But like for me, if a guy can pitch with his fastball and compete in the zone with his fastball, right? And it's a factor in what he does. That's a big foundational thing for me. So, there's a few things. The ability to spin the baseball. Can he spin it? And a lot of guys learn how to spin at a young age. And unfortunately, at this level, like they've either learned how to spin it well or not, and it's hard to you can mess around with grips and find a grip where a guy can get can up his rate of his spin, but at this point, once you've gotten to this level, man, it's like they've either learned how to spin it or not, and so you work with how they do it. So, there's certain things that guys I think have to do. Throwing it right, how the fastball comes off the hand, grip, how it feels, being able to pitch with your fastball in the zone. As you get up into, these levels, you got to be able to do some certain things. So land a breaking ball, at Triple-A, guys that can land a breaking ball at 2-0 or 2-1 when they're behind in the count, be able to throw something else other than a fastball in the zone, that's another thing where it's like it's a little bit more of an upper level thing, but those are the things that I look for in guys at this level,
Do you think, and this is maybe more of a personal question, do you think it's beneficial to have more than 2 pitches? Because I've seen guys that are just dominant with 2 pitches, and then I've seen guys that are dominant with 6 pitches.
Yeah, no, I think it's role dependent, right? Like closers typically aren't going to have 3 and 4 pitches. Starters typically will, right? So it's role dependent when you're trying to turn the lineup over and you're trying to go 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 innings deeper into the game, and you're turning the lineup over and facing guys more than once or twice to be able to pitch with 4 pitches and get them all in play and keep the hitter responsible for all pitches. That's a little different than a closer coming in to get 3 outs when he's got 2 pitches. So I don't think there's any one right or wrong answer. I mean, obviously a closer that comes in with a really good fastball and a really good breaking ball and a really good changeup makes it even harder for the next 3 guys that come up when he's only trying to get 3 outs. But typically the shorter roll guys don't usually get to that 3rd pitch because the first 2 are so elite, right? So typically the guys with 3 to 4 elite pitches are developed as starters, right? Guys that don't, they only have 1 or 2 elite pitches, they get developed as relievers because it's a shorter stint and they're out and they're back in the next day or 2 days later. So yeah, no, it's just it's all role dependent, as far as that goes,
Take us through, if you can, day of a game. You're starting pitcher, you're starting catcher, you're playing X team after BP and you're done with all that stuff and pitcher, catch, and all that stuff. What are you doing with those 2 guys to get ready for that night's game?
Well, typically, the beginning of a series, I'll meet with the whole group, with the catchers, with the coaches, whoever's in there, catching coach, and we'll do a general meeting and go over everybody. We'll go over the lineup for that day, which is a Tuesday, right, in our league. So we'll go over the lineup, maybe talk about a couple extra guys that may play throughout the week, and do just kind of a general meeting. And then every day after that, and even that day, I'll sit down with the starter and the catcher, and we'll just go over the lineup together as the 3 of us. And it's more so just to check and make sure that he has a plan, the catcher's on the same page, they have a plan, and I'm there to just kind of help facilitate what they do in terms of their preparation. Some guys come in a little more prepared than others, and some guys, so I'm there to kind of just help that out and make sure that there's a plan going into the game. And it's vital for me and for them to be able to do that and manage that and be able to study and prepare and get ready for those games that way. And so we'll sit down for 10 minutes and however long it takes and just kind of go over the lineup and make sure they have a clear-cut plan and how they're going to approach guys. And then, once they get out there and the game starts, it's just a matter of adjusting off of what the information is they get on their pitches and swings and how it kind of unfolds after that,
Are there guys who are, you mentioned more prepared, less prepared, and if you're listening and you hear crowd noise behind
we're
us,
getting cheers.
The Jacksonville Jaguars are getting ready to play the Buffalo Bills. That's what that is. You got to be ready in Buffalo. So anyway, so are there guys who are like really like, I'm going to face this hitter, I'm going to do this, 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 and this, and they are just like, I don't want to say like a Greg Maddux because that's an elite mind and a unique mind, but they're just determined to do X, Y, and Z from what they've watched video-wise?
Yeah, no, a lot of them do that, right? There's a lot of guys that prepare very well, and they understand, the heat maps. They understand the information. They understand pitching and what they want to do. But the caveat to it is do you execute pitches? And when I can get a guy in there with a catcher that prepares well, knows what he wants to do, and can execute pitches, and then I go out and watch the game from the dugout and actually be able to follow along and see what they're doing from the side because he's able to execute pitches, like it's an awesome thing to witness as a coach. When a guy is prepared, he knows what he's doing, and he can go execute it. There's plenty of guys that come in prepared, and they do the work, but do you go out and execute the pitches, right? So, and then that's a standard for me. You asked the earlier question about spin rate and technology and all that. It's like my thing is I need you to execute pitches, right? So, like, if you're working on a new spin or you're working on shaping a pitch, it's one thing to be able to have the machine tell you that it's like a better spin or a bigger sweep or has more depth, but, like, are you executing it where you want to? So, that'll always be a staple for me. To your point, to your question earlier about, like, what are staples, that's a staple for me, is being able to execute. So, guys that can come in, be prepared, talk about it, they know what they want to do to guys, and then you go out and watch them do it. It's awesome. It's a great thing to watch. And there's a few guys I've had that way, and it's been fun,
So I'm going to switch it up a little bit.
Yep.
Sorry, do you have one more question?
No, go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to switch it up a bit. This is one of the most interesting because I've only met a few people, like we said a little bit earlier in the podcast, of your time in Japan.
I was
Okay.
going to go here too, so
Yes.
this is perfect.
Okay.
Awesome. And people are cheering already for this question. But, okay, so walk us through what it was like. What was the situation? And maybe this is, I don't know if this is a hard conversation to have or not. You can skip wherever you need to. But going from playing for the Expos, working through Triple-A, and then going over to Japan. Walk us through that situation, because a lot of people watch baseball, and they think in the United States it's like, this is the big leagues, you got the minor leagues, whatever it is, and there's no other baseball. Like, they don't know that there's a lot of opportunities. You can go to Taiwan, you can go to South Korea, Dominican, Venezuela, Mexico. I think you can play in Europe. I was looking at playing in Italy just because I think that'd be fun.
Yeah.
But walk us through kind of what that looks like, your transition over to Japan.
Yeah, no. So I was with the Expos from '94 to 2000. At the end of the 2000 season, they took me off the roster, and it was at the end of the year for everybody. So I cleared waivers and was kind of a 6-year free agent, And so that offseason, I went to Puerto Rico, got hooked up with a winter ball team down there, and I had a rough 2000, both Triple-A and the big leagues. I was up and down all year long and just had no success at either spot and was really, really in the dumps as far as my career goes, and had never failed like that before. So, it was kind of a reset for me. I went to Puerto Rico and had a great winter ball. Enjoyed it, but really turned it around in terms of performance. So that got me signed with the Padres. I signed with the Padres in that offseason. So 01, I go into Major League camp with the Padres. Had a nice camp. Of the innings I got, was there all the way until the last week, and then got sent to Triple-A, and then I was in the PCL in Portland in 2001, and you talk about an unbelievable run. Like, I think about that time from April to mid-June when I went to Japan, a run of 11 starts and just really doing really well. So that got me that opportunity to go to Japan. A lot of people think that, like, as an American player, you think that you just have a choice to go over there when you want. It really doesn't work that way. It's like you've got to be sought out. They have to come see you and scout you and find out what kind of interest it is and all that. So I was doing well enough that got me on the map for them. And I was where was I at? Salt Lake City, and went to lunch and came back, had a message on my phone. Hey, I'm getting something working on a Japan team. Are you interested? And I was right away. And my agent says, all right, go to the field, throw your bullpen, like it was a bullpen day for me, and throw your bullpen and then check your phone after BP, and I did, and the deal was done. And so basically the team reaches out to the team over here, and they negotiate a contract to basically sell your contract to them. And as soon as I found that out, coincidentally enough, Rick Sweet was my manager at that time in Portland. And so I went into the office and told Sweetie that I got a deal in play. He didn't even know. He thought I was getting called up to the big leagues. He didn't even know. And so they had to reach out to the front office. And the next day I was on a flight to Portland to get all my stuff. And then I flew to Phoenix and was awaiting the visa process. And I went over there. 2 weeks later I was over there. And my thought going in was, like, I have an opportunity to up my salary a ton the rest of this season, and then I'll come back. I was 24, just about to turn 25 when I went over there, so still relatively young. And my thought was, I'll go over there and finish the year, and then see what I can do back over here. And 7 full years later, I was still there. So that's just kind of how it worked. It just kind of happened fast, and I think it was a good time for me to go do that, because it's like I was settling into my prime over there at that time, and they got the best 5 years that I pitched, of my career. So, that was a blessing in disguise for me at that time, and just an opportunity that was just awesome and unbelievable for me.
It's super cool. And because you were there for so long, like, how much of the Japanese culture did you pick up? 7 years is a long time.
Yeah, no, I picked up quite a bit of the language, enough to be able to go out with the catcher and be alone with him and have dinner and be able to a little bit of English, a little bit of Japanese. Learned quite a bit. Culture, was great. I mean, it was just awesome over there. The first year was tough. It was a tough adjustment, but once I settled into like, okay, this is where I want to be, that's when the performance took off, and I just enjoyed being over there. Picked up some of the language and was okay getting out and about. When I first got over there, it was tough for me to even get out and go do anything, just because of how different it was. But once I embraced that part of it, everything else kind of flourished for me, and so it was awesome.
And then at the end of those 7 years, you came back to the U.S.
Yeah.
Like, was that obviously you wanted to keep playing.
Yep.
How did that happen that you decide I'm done with Japan and I want to go keep playing even in Triple-A?
Well, it just becomes like, who do you know in the game and who's willing to bring you into minor league spring training and give you an opportunity. At that time I was, I think, 31, going to be 32 that June, and my agent reached out to people that I knew at the Pirates who I had as a minor league player before, and they gave me an opportunity, brought me into minor league camp. You're coming in to try to make a Triple-A team. And so I go into camp, and I was the oldest minor league player there at 31. And at that time, 2 kids, and so the family was in spring training. And I'm every day just busting it, trying to make a club. And then the day gets over, and I got to go home and go to the beach and be daddy at the beach when all I want to do is go lay on the couch and try to recover for the next day. So that year of spring training was tough physically, but that's really how it happened, is that my agent reaches out to people that knew who I was, 9-10 years ago, that gave me an opportunity. And so I was able to make that Triple-A club. And then the next year they brought me into big league camp, had an opportunity, pitched my last 2 years in Triple-A for the Pirates, and then that was it. So, yeah, no, just it's a people game, right? I mean, it's who you know, kind of. So
I want to walk back real quick to the Japanese experience. I want to know, because I've never been over there. Of course, in Seattle there is a large Asian population, so I get a little bit of it if you go downtown, a lot of different stuff like that. But walk me through what it was like walking down the street. Whether you remind me of the name of the city you were in. It started with an O.
I started out in Osaka.
Osaka.
Yep.
And then, so talk to me how Osaka was, and then how Tokyo was.
Yeah. So I lived in Osaka for the first 4 years, right in the middle of Osaka. And Osaka is the second largest city, but very Japanese in terms of like how many foreigners are there versus Tokyo. Not a lot of English being spoken there as much, right? So it's very Japanese. You get thrown right into that culture. And my apartment was, and I don't know if you guys have seen Mr. Baseball at all ever, but if you get an opportunity to see that movie, like I had seen it before, but after I'd spent some time there and then saw the movie again, that movie was depicted so right on, like so spot on. Take a peek at it if you can. But anyway, so I'm into this tiny little apartment, tiny bed, tiny everything, right? Everything's smaller there. So a lot of adjusting there, and so that was that was hard, right? So like I'm in an apartment, I'm by myself. I wasn't married, we were engaged, but so I'm by myself and not really getting out, just kind of going to the field, coming home, and just not really getting out there and experiencing it yet. And but so that was tough. And once by the end of my first year, I started kind of getting out on days off and going checking things out. Universal Studio Japan, spent a day there, and was like able to understand the train system and how things go there. And it really is easy. All the signs have English on them, so it's very intricate, but it's easy once you understand what the colors are of the lines and the different trains. Once I understood all that, it became a lot easier. So the first 4 years I was in Osaka, and that was quite an experience. And then my 5th year, I moved into Roko Island, which is kind of near Kobe, which is about probably 25 minutes or so away from Osaka, onto this man-made island that was it had a big, huge Sheraton hotel. A lot of expats were there, they're living there, and so it was a little bit more westernized, right? Man-made island. There was houses there. I wasn't used to seeing houses in Japan. It was all high-rise apartments, and so that made it a little more homey. And I was actually in a 2-bedroom house there for the next 5 years, living there. And, I'd go home in the off-season and leave all my stuff there. And I even had a car there for about 4 years. I drove over there while I was there. And so it was kind of my home away from home. And so I'd go home in the off-season, fly back to Japan for spring training, and be in the house, for a while. So then I moved to Tokyo. My last my last year, 2 years, last couple of years I was in Tokyo, and that was way different. To me, that was like being in New York City. Foreigners everywhere, foreign restaurants everywhere, a lot of English being spoken everywhere, a lot more westernized Japanese people in general there. So it's a lot different in Tokyo than it was in Osaka, but great experience, loved it. I would love to go back and visit. My oldest remembers it a little bit, but that it feels like 100 years ago, but it was a great experience in my life in baseball and just being able to get out and experience other cultures,
The baseball there, I guess the games are very loud from what I understand. Is that what you remember as well?
Oh, yeah. I mean, baseball is like, aside from sumo wrestling, baseball is like, it's like the sport, right? So, Tokyo Giants I played for 2 years. They were getting 35 to 40,000 every night, whether it was at home or on the road. So baseball is a huge thing there. Fans love it. They're like superstars, the players over there. So it's definitely a big league experience and not the major leagues for sure,
Sumo wrestling. I totally
Awesome.
That just didn't went
Dude,
right over.
yeah.
How many matches is it called? It's called a match, right?
I think they're called matches. I don't know. I went to one personally and was able to sit with my teammates about 2 rows behind them and really get and check it out. Dude, it was awesome. Like, it was awesome what they do and how they do it, all of the, just the rituals, the way, it was a lot of fun. Yeah, it's crazy.
So you're a big guy. Did they ask for like a celebrity to come down and like
Well, no,
wrestle?
it was my teammate that got us to get in there, who was a celebrity over there at
Okay.
that time, that got us those tickets real close. And then once we were there, it's kind of a quiet thing. It's just it just was different, But
So
it was just
it's
really
not
cool.
like MMA. It's not like WWE.
No.
It's like it's respectful.
Very respectful.
And then toss. See ya.
Certain way that they like sit, and the judges are sitting there, and there's a certain way that they, rotate in, and then each match is pretty quiet. You kind of hear everything that's going on up there because there's not a lot of cheering going on. So you hear the body smack, you hear them hit the floor, and it's just like wow. But like most of those guys that I learned, like once they get done with their career, they lose all their weight. So like I met some former wrestlers, and they were normal looking, like they'd lost all their weight. So most of those guys, the weight they put on is all like planned, right?
Training weight, like
Training,
fighting weight.
rice,
Yes.
like eating carbs and gaining weight. It's crazy, But so it was interesting, really interesting. Yep.
JP, thank you so much. for
Absolutely.
making the
Enjoyed
time.
it.
Hope you have a great off season ahead, and hopefully we'll see you again next year.
Absolutely. Yep. Enjoyed it. Appreciate you guys.
You lived up to the hype. You were very,
Yep.
very good again.
He's a great interviewer. One of my
I
favorites
told ya.
every year. I get to do. I get to
Awesome.
talk.
Well, I appreciate that, fellas.
Well, thank you, everybody. That's been Turn 2 with Scott and Troy. You can find us wherever you get podcasts, Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. Check us out. We got a lot of new episodes coming out here throughout the off season. Make sure to keep checking in and follow us on socials.